Good morning, y'all. I'm coming back to talk a little bit more about sustainable birth work and collaborative working. Just, kind of like real life doula work. I think one of the things that I really like about birth work and doula work, I should bookmark to say I've done the classic 9-to-5 work. I've also been a high school classroom teacher, so I know what those hours are like too. But I'm able to do real life things with birth work. For instance, I'm able to go to Publix and just do the things that that require me being Sherry, wife, mom, and not necessarily birth doula. So I'm sitting in the Publix parking lot and have to go in because I am out of celery and onions and I'm making a chicken soup for supper tonight. But I also have I had to run and grab some encapsulation supplies from our local store, Timeless Remedies. I have I have this client that I met about 3.5 years ago. She and her husband contacted me to do a childbirth education class for them. And because their lives were so crazy at the time in terms of work and whatnot, they had asked me to come do a private class in their home. And I did. And at the end of our class, she just popped a question. She said, "Hey, I have a friend who has just done placenta encapsulation. Can you tell me a little bit about it?" And so I did. And I really do try to offer unbiased information about it because it's a field where there's not a lot of research done about it because there's no there's no money in research for that particular thing since it's not a pharmaceutical. It doesn't fall under the pharmaceutical industry. So anyway, I got an email or a text from her like 2 days later, and she said, "Hey, we've talked about it and we would really like for you to encapsulate our placenta." So that was 3 years ago, and she just texted me 2 days ago, and they've had their third baby, and so I'm encapsulating for them for the third time. And they are a really sweet couple. And anyway, I love kind of having, we don't have a connection as birth doula and client relationship, but I was their childbirth education instructor. And anyway, I love how my work brings me into connection with lots of different people. But I wanted to talk about the fact that 2 doulas in our group are going to be out of town for 4 days, the same 4 days. And, just as life would have it, we have 3 clients who have not fallen along the lines of their estimated due date. How dare they, right? So I'm kind of looking at a little bit of a birth tsunami if somebody doesn't have a baby here soon. And the fact is, I'm not sweating it. And so I get the question, okay, what happens when real life happens with your doulas in the group? And the answer to that is I start looking for sources of help, dependable help. And so, I have personally seen, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys have seen, but I've personally seen, frantic call outs on Facebook, about I need a backup doula. I mean, heck, I've actually done that before. One time I was at a birth, this was several years ago. I was at a birth, an induction for a first time parent, and About 13 hours into the induction, I get this text from my husband that says, 2 of the kids are throwing up. And he said, but, I'm handling it. It's all good. An hour later, I get a text. Okay, a 3rd kid is throwing up, and now the other 2 have diarrhea. And I was just kind of like, okay, this is not good. And then he texted me and he was like, Mayday, Mayday, I'm down. The 4th kid is down. We are all having diarrhea and vomiting. And basically, they had all gone out to eat the night before while I was at the induction. And I think, it was food poisoning. None of them had fevers or anything. So I'm like, okay, I'm confident, my husband can handle 4 vomiting kids. He cannot handle 4 vomiting kids when he himself is also vomiting and has diarrhea. So I did have to do a frantic, oh my gosh, guys, Facebook land, doula land. I didn't do it on my personal Facebook page. I did it in a doula group. But hey, if you're local to this hospital, can you help me out? Because my family, they're laid out. And Heather Cheek, if you're watching this, which I don't know that you would, but thanks for answering that call. You really saved my bacon. But you know what? I knew Heather, and I was confident, and I explained to my client's husband what was going on at my house, and he was like, oh my gosh, you need to go. And I said, well, I'm not leaving you. I'm bringing in help. So, there are those times where it's like, I'm strapped. I don't have help. But anyway, so we've, I met with a doula who's just moved here from another state, and she is, from what I could tell meeting with her, she is rock solid. And so I talked to her about being backup for us in a pinch, and she's happy to do that because that helps her learn the birth landscape of Atlanta and get experience going to different hospitals. And as luck would have it, she's ideally situated just where she lives to be in good proximity to some of the major hospitals. So anyway, I'm again just wanting to bring to you guys the reality of, even when you have solid systems in place and good, dependable, reliable, collaborative network, there's going to be times when when more life happens. And so, for us, we have a doula getting married. Woohoo! Courtney, gonna become Mrs. Lopez. She's gonna take a bridal leave, and well, she should. And so we're super excited about that. And then another one of our doulas is going on a family vacation because you know what? Family vacations are necessary to maintain sanity. So all of these things are good and should take place. And, but then you have the question of what happens when your clients don't fall into their estimated due dates. Well, that is life, and that is a reality of the work that we do. And so keep on. If you are learning about or hearing about sustainable birth work and collaborative working for the first time, or maybe you've heard about it but you really haven't given it much thought, these are some of the real life issues that come up. And so I would just say keep on networking with people in your circle, finding those good, reliable people that you just hear rock solid things about all the time. Like when their name comes up in a group, you're like, oh yeah, she's good, she's amazing, she's dependable. She's not this wacko person that's going to be working way outside of scope and deciding to turn off the Pitocin or something. I'm sort of kidding, but unfortunately I'm not. So anyway, so those are my thoughts for this Thursday as I'm sitting in the Publix parking lot in Atlanta in September, where we're looking at 98 degrees today. So all of you doulas like Alice who are in Seattle and wearing a scarf to your prenatal interviews, I'm pretty jealous of that. Y'all have a good Thursday.